Hi, hello everybody. I'm Justin. This is Koopa. Welcome to Koopa's Corner. This weekend was WrestleMania 41. It's in the books, and let's talk about it. This is going to be our WrestleMania 41 post-show breakdown. We've got some thoughts, we've got some opinions. So we're going to go over the results. We're going to talk about some standout moments and maybe what's next. Who knows, right? So this is going to be both nights. Just like with our preview and predictions, I decided to do both together instead of two separate videos. So we're going to talk about both nights. So first up, night one, the first match, opening match, Jey Uso versus the Ring General, Gunther. Now, Jey Uso won. Jey Uso got his big moment. He finally won. Not only did he win, but he made Gunther tap out to Gunther's own sleeper hold, right? And it wasn't just the sleeper hold. Jey consistently used Gunther's own moves throughout the match. What did you guys think of this? This is one of the matches that I was not sold on going into it. WrestleMania didn't have a very strong build, in my opinion. And this was one of the reasons. Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble was one of the reasons. I like Jey Uso. I like him. I just don't think he's very good. He's fun, but he's not very good. He can't cut a promo worth a damn, and his in-ring is very limited. So I was nervous about this match. I didn't think it was going to live up to it, and what do you think? What do you think of this match? Because I feel like I'm kind of in the minority with Jey Uso. I feel like he's so over and that I'm clearly missing something. So I want to know what you guys think. Personally, I thought he had like a 15-minute entrance and Gunther only had like a 2-minute entrance. They wanted, obviously, this shot of him meeting with 60,000 people. At some points throughout the match, it looked like he was kind of nursing his arm. I was wondering if he was maybe injured a little bit. I also honestly thought him using all of Gunther's moves just highlighted the fact that he doesn't really have moves of his own. I understand what they were going for. I don't think it came across that way. I think that, he's not a great in-ring worker, and he doesn't have enough of an arsenal of his own that he had to resort to using Gunther's. I also think, beating Gunther is one thing, making Gunther tap is another. Gunther's only lost like 3 matches before this or something like that. And then he just taps instantly to a very poorly executed sleeper hold. I think this did more harm to Gunther than it did good for Jey Uso. Walking out of this match, I'm worried about what's next for Gunther. And tonight on Raw is going to say a lot. Actually, by the time I'm recording this on Monday before Raw, but it's probably not going to be posted till after Raw. So by the time this posts, we'll maybe have an idea, right? But on Raw, it's going to say a lot. What if Gunther comes out? If Gunther cuts a promo? If Gunther talks? We're going to see what's next for Gunther. I don't know that we're going to get it. Cena's probably going to come out. Rollins is probably going to come out. Jay's probably going to come out. Gunther probably not going to come out. And I think that's telling as well. I think it's more important to see how Gunther rebounds. As for Jey, he'll defend the title a few times. Hold it for a little while. Hopefully not too long. Hopefully he'll drop it in a few months. Unless, of course, something changes. If I would love for Jey to go on a fucking run here and, prove me wrong and show some in-ring ability that he has yet to show. Next up, it was the tag team title match, The New Day versus the War Raiders. I loved that they were making fun of the Giant Gonzalez with their attire when they came out, The New Day. That was hilarious, and I loved it. And then on the flip side, the War Raiders were made to look super cartoony to help promote Clash of Clans, which I don't know if y'all play it. I don't play it. But I thought that they looked terrible in their entrances. Honestly. The match itself was fine. The New Day, I think, took a little too long to capitalize on the momentum of kicking Big E out. I don't think the match had a lot of heat to it. But at least the New Day are more relevant than the War Raiders. So going forward, it's just going to be how much time and attention does the tag division get. Yeah, that was that. Nothing special to talk about there. Next up, it was Jade Cargill versus Naomi. And Jade looked fantastic. Her attire was absolutely fire, man. The white, the gold, like the lightning bolts. She had like a whole Zeus thing going on. And I understand they were playing off of the storm. The whole weatherman shtick to her intro was a little hokey, but her attire was absolutely great. She looked great. The match itself was decent. I mean, it wasn't anything special, but it was decent. Especially for a first kind of outing for Jade on a singles level. They did a fine enough job. The match did what it needed to do. Going forward, it's just going to be elevating Jade, getting her more singles practice. And nothing too much to say about that. It's pretty much as expected. It was kind of a coronation for Jade Cargill. All right. Jacob Fatu versus L.A. Knight. That was next. Jacob Fatu won the United States Championship. And again, this was a decent match. Maybe not as good as it could have been or should have been, but it was fine. And that seems to be the theme with this WrestleMania. There was very little that was actively bad, but there was also very little that stood out as amazing. And this match, was no exception. It was kind of right there in the middle. It was fine. We have a new United States champion. It was a coronation moment for Jacob Fatu, which, hopefully he can take this momentum and run with it and capitalize on it and turn it into more. So we'll see from here where they go with that. Next time up on the list was El Grande Americano versus Fenix. Not Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio got hurt on SmackDown. He tore his groin. Not medically cleared to compete. Was replaced last minute by another Rey Fenix. El Grande Americano had an all-time entrance. I thought his entrance was great. I think this whole gimmick is hilarious, and I like it, and I'm having fun with it, and not all stories have to be super serious, and I'm just waiting for the moment that they have Chad Gable and El Grande Americano in the ring together, because I think that'll be well worth it, because everyone is just insisting that it's Chad Gable. So coming out of here, having some big momentum, I think there's more story to be told there. It's unfortunate for Rey Fenix to take an L on his debut, so close to his debut, but Rey Mysterio is a legend who would have bounced back from that no problem. Rey Fenix is not quite in such a solid position. But the fact that Rey got hurt and they utilized him to fill that spot says a lot about what they think of him. And that being said, I'm sure that they will book him pretty strongly going forward. So I think he'll rebound from this all right. He might not. It's not as guaranteed like it would have been with Rey Mysterio, but it's going to depend on the booking. But I'm not too worried, to be honest. All right, next up was Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship. And this was the first match of the night that really felt like they kicked it into overdrive, right? This felt like, okay, they're actually trying to be WrestleMania level here with this. It was a very brutal match. There was some urgency. There was some intensity that we have not seen throughout the rest of the card thus far. Tiffany Stratton looked like she chipped a tooth. Maybe she just busted her lip. She posted a photo afterwards showing that her teeth were fine. But she looked a little banged up. But yeah, I had predicted Charlotte Flair. I'm so glad I was wrong. This felt like it needed to be Tiffany Stratton. But, the WWE, They love their Charlotte, and Charlotte is always booked pretty strong, and this is her kind of big comeback storyline. So I wasn't faithful that they were going to give it to Tiffany the way that they probably should have. And I'm very glad to have been wrong there. I'm glad Tiffany Stratton won. I think that it does a lot more for her in a win than it would have for Charlotte. And I think a loss would have hurt Tiffany Stratton a lot worse than it will for Charlotte as well. And I just think this was the right decision. So I in my previews and my predictions, I talked about it a little bit. This feels like the way it should go. I wasn't fully convinced that it was going to be the way that it went. So very glad to have been wrong there. All right, and then the main event. The triple threat match, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. First of all, Seth Rollins having a flamethrower was really cool. But the match itself, it was, this belonged at WrestleMania, right? Leading up to it, right, it was questionable. Why are they going with the triple threat? They could have gone a number of ways. Any of those matches, any of those combinations of those competitors would have felt bigger as a singles match. But we got what we got, and these were three of the all-time greats, three absolute legends in this industry, and they stepped it up and they performed at a WrestleMania level. Tiffany and Charlotte tried. You could see the effort was there. It didn't even look like they tried, man. This was just success. This worked. The story was phenomenal. They told a great story. Nobody felt out of place. Nobody felt like an afterthought, which can happen a lot in triple threats. The whole Paul Heyman favor. Paul Heyman betrayed both Roman and Punk and sided with Rollins at the end. A lot of intrigue. We'll probably hear from Heyman and or Seth on Raw. Punk will probably come out, interrupt. That feud will probably continue. I don't know when or if we'll see Roman again. I'm sure we will. It's probably going to be a little while, though. Roman's probably going to disappear for a little while. But, yeah, I'm intrigued to see what's next. And that's the point, right? They did their job. They did a great job. No complaints. And that was night one. Night one of WrestleMania 41. That was Saturday. I honestly, start to finish, it was a B+ card at best. The booking was not the strongest leading into WrestleMania. Right, some very questionable booking, some questionable stories. The match card was not as strong as it could have been. That didn't mean the potential to deliver wasn't there. There was still potential to deliver, and we all tuned in anyway, right? But yeah, it just very much did not live up to WrestleMania. It felt fine. It could have been any other pay-per-view. Some of those matches could have been Raw or SmackDown matches. It felt fine. It wasn't bad, but hardly anything stood out. The main event was great. The Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton match was pretty good. It was above average for the rest of the card. Everything else, fine. Absolutely fine. Then it was night two. Right off the bat, we get the triple threat match for the Women's World Championship. Bianca Belair versus Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley. And right off the bat, this match felt better than anything night one. It was fast-paced. There was great false finishes. There was a coherent story being told throughout that was in line with the story being told building up to the match. The in-ring psychology was great. This just fired on all cylinders. And this, in my opinion, was the match of the weekend. This was the best match the entire weekend. Just the incredible star power here. I do scratch my head a little bit. Why Bianca needed to be in this match in the first place if she wasn't going to win. Io Sky won. Io Sky retained. And I think based on the story they were telling, that was probably the right call for that story. What it means going forward for Bianca, for Rhea. TBD, who knows? Sure they'll both be fine, but yeah, it didn't really make sense why Bianca was involved with this as opposed to the Jade and Naomi match, given that she wasn't going to win. But I think that thinking about it that way, thinking about the booking of it, I think it's a little too meta, right? And it kind of took me out of the story. I think the way the story was being told, it was pretty obvious that Io was going to win, or she needed to be the one that won this match. And I think I was losing the story in, for the politics of it, the backstage politics of it. So I was wrong with my prediction, and I'm glad to have been wrong here because I think, just the whole idea of Io as the underdog, Io as the afterthought, Io as the sort of third wheel, like they played up to the trope that people are often overlooked in triple threats, which is a very real thing historically, but they acknowledged it, and they made it a part of the story here, and it worked. And so Rhea and Bianca both focused on each other. They completely dismissed and underestimated Io, who managed to get the W. So it bit them both in the ass. Beautifully told, and very true to the story that built to the match in the first place. So, yeah, match of the night, in my opinion. All right, and then we have the street fight. Drew McIntyre versus Damien Priest in the Sin City street fight, and they broke the first rule of a street fight, guys. They didn't wear jeans and a t-shirt. How else are we supposed to know that it's a street fight instead of a no disqualification match, or a no holds barred match, or a falls count anywhere match? Any number of no disqualification gimmicks. Street fights are only set apart because they wear jeans and a t-shirt. Aside from that, no, it was a really good match. It was brutal. They made the most of having a gimmick. It was the only gimmick match on the card both nights. There was a couple of really fun spots, really kind of, oh my God, I hope he's okay kind of spots. Damien Priest went for an old school, and Drew pushed him off the ropes, out of the ring, through a couple of tables. Very brutal spot. Damien got Claymored through a chair in the corner. Brutal spot. That was the finish. Brutal finish. And Drew McIntyre won, and Drew McIntyre was the right superstar to win. He had a hell of a 2024 with his feud with CM Punk. He's lost a lot of momentum. This was a nice big win on a big stage, which he has more than earned. Hopefully he can take some of that momentum going forward, and he can find a little bit more relevance coming out of this. As for Damien Priest, we'll see. Time will tell. But I think it was more important to protect Drew here. So, that's my thoughts on that match. Next up, it was the Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way. Alright. Dirty Dom pinned Finn Balor to win the Intercontinental Championship for the very first time, which I'm sure Liv Morgan is super, super proud of him. But this was a fun match. Nice multi-man match. He kind of moved away from a triple threat to a fatal 4-way, which was good. There was too many triple threats already going on. Fatal 4-way, the dynamic is a little different. But yeah, mostly Braun Breaker looked strong. Penta got to show off a little bit as well. And then Dom got the pin on Finn. So the Judgment Day implosion is upon us. And honestly, guys, it is about damn time. I like the Judgment Day. I do. I think they're one of the better factions in WWE history. But the Judgment Day kind of stopped being the Judgment Day when Rhea and Damien got kicked out of it. I mean, originally it was Edge, Rhea, and Damien, right? So once they left, there were no original members left. The group didn't have the star power. It didn't have the influence. It has sort of been limping along. No offense to Carlito, J.D. McDonough, or Raquel Rodriguez, but they're not stars. They're very lukewarm. So it's just not been on that level, and it's about time that we put it to rest, I think. So very happy with that ending. I think it was a well-told story. And it leaves the door open for a story going forward here with the Judgment Day. So I'm happy about that as well. Oftentimes WrestleMania is, the season finale. So, all right, next up, Randy Orton comes out. Oh, Kevin Owens is hurt. Kevin Owens can't compete. Randy Orton issues an open challenge. Who should answer? Joe Hendry. This was a fun moment. I didn't have any predictions for this. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know if they were going to have him come out at all. I didn't know if they were going to do an open challenge or what. I think the common rumors leading up to it were Rusev and Nick Aldis, but it could have been anybody. You could have been an NXT person. It could have been someone like Sheamus who didn't make the card, who's, been around for a long time. I think it was awesome. Really popped the crowd that it was Joe Hendry of all people. The match itself, super quick, didn't really last that long. It was a glorified squash match, which was unfortunate, right? They could have given it 5 more minutes, given Joe Hendry a little bit more offense to better protect him, especially as the world champ in TNA. If you wanted to do a squash, you could have done The Miz. You could have done, any number of people, and it wouldn't have mattered. You also missed a really big opportunity to have a legend like Stone Cold Steve Austin, rather than come out, drunk driving his ATV later in the show. He could have done this. He wrestled Kevin Owens a couple years back. They could have inserted him here, but if it was just to for a 5-minute thing and to take a couple RKOs, I understand why they didn't, even though it probably would have been cooler. But I'm a big Joe Hendry fan. I like Joe Hendry. I think the biggest problem, honestly, as much as I think they could have done with 5 more minutes, the biggest problem is the announcers. Michael Cole in particular. Wade Barrett was trying to get him over, kind of. But Michael Cole kept calling him Joe Henry instead of Joe Hendry. And he was just super dismissive. And it felt like, the heel Michael Cole that we had in, 2010. And they were a little too dismissive of Joe Hendry. Your job isn't to paint somebody who got themselves over outside of the WWE to be this big, inferior, good luck kid type of a moment. You're out of your league here, kid type of a moment. Like, you should have been talking about what a great opportunity this was for him and the exposure that this is going to get him. And if you don't know his body of work, you should check out TNA. He's our partner company. You should check him out. He's the world champion there. And instead, they're just like, oh, he thinks he can beat Randy Orton? He thinks he can beat Randy Orton? And it was just, that was the only problem, was the announcers. Right? 5 more minutes would have been nice. But somebody slap some fucking sense into those goddamn announcers. And by announcers, I mean Michael Cole, who is normally on fucking point. Normally phenomenal when it comes to Joe Hendry. And they were like this at the Royal Rumble as well. For whatever reason, they're just super, super dismissive. And they need to knock it the fuck off. So that was the Randy Orton Open Challenge. Then it was AJ and Logan Paul. And it was another fine match, decent match. I like Logan Paul's new finish as opposed to just doing the frog splash, right? It's like a flip slam. I don't even know what to call it, honestly. He but it's like a slam where he kind of flips him around in the air, and it's cool. It's decent. It's a good finish. There was some story elements here as well. It was fine. I don't think anyone's any better off or any worse because this match happened. The Women's Tag Team Championship match was next. Ooh, and this was a bad match. This was a bad moment. This was bad. This was B-A-D, bad. During the pre-show of night 1, Bayley's found backstage, attacked, unable to compete. Lyra Valkyria has 24 hours to find a new tag team partner. We all know who it's going to be. We all know who Lyra Valkyria, who's from Ireland, I think, right? Is she from Ireland? She's from the UK, somewhere in the UK. We all know who she's going to call because there's another woman who's from the UK who's very openly been friends with her in the past on TV. And it's Becky Lynch. And lo and behold, it's Becky Lynch. Right? This was about her return, and this didn't have to come at the expense of 4 other women. Bayley suffered by getting kicked out of WrestleMania for the moment. Lyra Valkyria suffered, maybe less so than the others, but she's the Intercontinental Champion, and the focus was not on her or the Intercontinental Championship. The focus was on who her partner's going to be. She spent most of the match getting her ass whooped, only for Becky to come in and clean house. So she didn't really look that strong or get to show off what she could do in this match either. And then there was Liv and Raquel. And I don't give a shit about Raquel. I don't think Raquel's that good. But Liv Morgan was Superstar of the Year in 2024, bar none. Like, she was easily carrying the company on her back in 2024. And she missed out on being in the triple threat match, which could easily have been a triple threat with her, Rhea, and Io. And Bianca could have dealt with Jade. It could have been a fatal 4-way if they insisted on getting Bianca in there. It could have been a fatal 4-way. Liv Morgan could have been in there. Instead, Liv Morgan has been relegated to tag duty, which is a demotion enough in and of itself. It's unfortunate, but okay. Maybe you want her and Raquel to try and elevate the tag titles because you know how charismatic she is and how over she was and how good she was doing in 2024. Fine. But then you do the whole thing with writing Bayley off, bringing Becky in. And this was just about bringing Becky back, giving her a big, short, emphatic victory. So Liv and Raquel barely got to do anything. They lost their titles on the biggest stage of them all. It was just a moment that it felt like this served nobody except for Becky Lynch. This did nothing but stroke Becky Lynch's ego. I like Becky Lynch. I'm a big Becky fan. Becky could have come back in a number of ways that would have been fine. You know, she could have come back in the aftermath of that match with Bayley, you know, to get in somebody's face, or to save Lyra from a post-match beatdown, or to turn on Lyra because there's a new belt in town and she wants it. Or she could have come back on Raw tonight instead of at WrestleMania. I mean, it just felt like this was just very poorly executed all the way around. Unless you're Becky Lynch. In which case you came out and you looked strong as hell and you had a fun moment. And then, Stone Cold came out to announce the attendance. And I don't know if he was actually drinking before he got on his ATV. I said that earlier, but I have no idea. All I know is he crashed his ATV into the barricade, and a fan took a fall because of it, right? There's been a lot of speculation online whether that was serious or not, whether she took the fall to try and get something out of the WWE. I don't know. I'm not going to comment one way or the other whether it was a real or a fake injury, but either way, he crashed his ATV. So, and the fact that he was in the building means he could have answered Randy Orton's open challenge. He could have. But I just wanted to mention that just because of the potential story that's happening outside of TV for, if he actually crashed it and hurt somebody, that's huge, So, just a brief moment there. After that, he read the attendance and it was nothing. And then, the main event. Cody Rhodes and John Cena. Yeah, the match was kind of a dud. It kind of sucked, honestly. You kind of banked your whole weekend on this, and it kind of sucked. So, first and foremost, there was no Rock. And we still don't know really the relationship that John Cena and The Rock have. Because John Cena didn't just turn heel, he sold his soul to The Rock. When it first happened, in my post-show breakdown of Elimination Chamber, I questioned the heel turn. I questioned whether it was necessary. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good idea. And then the reaction was so overwhelmingly positive. I made another video where I admitted to being wrong about John Cena's heel turn, and that I had to have been wrong. It was so well received, and I think the potential's there. But now that WrestleMania's come and gone, I take it back. I was right about John Cena's heel turn. This sucks, right? And that's exactly what they want, first and foremost, so props to them. But no, this sucks, right? The match wasn't that good. Maybe it was because John Cena's getting a little bit older. Maybe it's because he's not in the ring nearly as often, so there's some ring rust. Maybe he's toning it down on purpose because he's here to ruin professional wrestling. But it fell flat. It was a dud. And there's been no rock. There's been no real legitimate explanation of why he did this, aside from, you guys have booed me for a long time and I'm sick of it. And that doesn't really explain, being in cahoots with The Rock at Elimination Chamber. It doesn't explain Travis Scott's involvement, which, fuck this guy, man. Get this guy out of here. First he shows up smoking during Jey Uso's entrance. Then he gives Cody a black eye, and we're still letting him get involved in shit? Like, man, this guy is problematic, and he doesn't need to be on TV. He doesn't need to be involved. And this felt very much like you're trying to shoehorn a celebrity in because he's a celebrity, and not because he adds value to the story at all. If this is all part of John Cena's master plan to ruin wrestling by ruining the main event of WrestleMania, it's a very risky plan on the WWE's part. How many events are you going to let him, not even let him, but are you going to book to underwhelm? Or at least his matches, Because we've seen in the past when the storytelling isn't great and people will tune out, right? This was WrestleMania. This was the biggest stage of them all. I understand he wants to ruin professional wrestling, but that needs to happen in kayfabe, right? The matches themselves can actually suck, because if the matches start to suck all the time, why are we going to watch? It's very, very risky if it was on purpose. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it if it was on purpose. If it wasn't, I'm sure they're going to claim it was. But yeah, just this main event really disappointed, and I don't think that John Cena turning heel was really worth it, honestly, especially in the last year of his career. This happened 10 years too late. Yeah, it's not something that people have been asking for 10 years. It's something that people asked for 10 years ago, and there's a difference. I think it would have made a lot more sense if Cody had sold his soul to The Rock, reluctantly became a heel, He could have had that same, argument with himself of, am I going to do it, am I not going to do it, by hitting Cena with the belt. But instead of it being Cena who takes advantage, it's The Rock on the outside barking orders at him to do it. He still could have had this internal struggle of good guy at heart being forced to do bad things. That would have been a more interesting story. John Cena, the last year of his career, and we're wasting it on this. And I don't know. I don't think it was worth it. I don't think the match was very good. I think the main event kind of ended on a dud, right? And again, for a much better night than night one was. But yeah, there was some decent stuff, much better than the night before, but not a ton of stuff that felt like amazing, right? The women's triple threat match in the beginning opened the card, fantastic, absolutely great. Then the street fight was pretty good. The fatal four-way for the Intercontinental Championship was pretty good. Those all felt WrestleMania worthy. But the rest of the stuff could have been on any B-level pay-per-view, or I guess PLE now. And some of them even could have been Raw or SmackDown, like the AJ Styles match, Logan Paul match. It was fine. That could have been on an episode of Raw. It could have been last week's Raw, and I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I wouldn't have been like, oh, this is too good for this. They should have saved this for WrestleMania. It was fine. So all in all, guys, that's those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions. WrestleMania 41. It's in the books. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. What was the match of the weekend? How do we feel about some of the more controversial booking decisions? And where do we think it's going to go from here? Right? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.